Volume 5, Chapter 1, Section 2. The Brahmo Festival at Mani Mohan Malik's house. We remember vividly that it was the fall season. After enduring the torments of a hot summer, nature was enjoying bathing in the rains and adorning herself with the beauties of autumn, and was now pulling her veil around her as the chill of winter drew near. It was the last quarter of the season. Balram Basu, a great devotee of the Master and our esteemed friend, was present on this occasion. He marked the day in his almanac, and as was his habit, and from that record we know that the exact date was Monday, 26th November 1883. We were then studying at St. Xavier's College in Calcutta and had the privilege of meeting the Master only 2 or 3 times. The college was closed that day, so we decided to visit the Master that afternoon. We remembered that on the boat to Dakshineshwar, we learned that one of our fellow passengers was also going to visit the Master. His name was Vaikuntanath Sanyal, and he too had met the Master only recently. We also remember that another passenger overheard the Master's name during our conversation and made a sarcastic remark, and that Vaikunta silenced the man with a scornful retort. When we reached Dakshineshwar, it was about 2 or 2:30 in the afternoon. The party included Bharada Sundar Pal of Komila, Hari Prasanna Chattopadhyay of Bulgaria, later Swami Vijnanananda, and the author. As soon as we entered the Master's room and bowed down to him, he said, "Ah, you have come today. Had you come a little later, you would have missed me. I am going to Calcutta to attend a Brahmo festival and the carriage had been called for. But it's nice that you could see me. Please sit down. How disappointing it would have been for you to return home without seeing me." We sat on the mat spread on the floor of his room and asked the Master, "Sir, would we be allowed at the Brahmo festival that you are going to?" The Master replied, "Why not? You are free to go there if you like. It is at the house of Mani Malik of Sinduriapati." A slender, fair young man wearing a red cloth entered the room, and the Master asked him, "Could you tell these boys the address of Mani Malik's house?" The young man replied humbly, 81 Chitpur Road, Sinduriapati. Because of his modest behavior and sattvic nature, we thought that he was the son of a temple priest. A couple of months later, we saw that as he was leaving the examination hall at school. When we spoke to him, we realized that our previous impression had been incorrect. We learned that his name was Baburam and that he was from Antpur near Tarakeshwar. He was living in a rented house at Kambulia Tola in Calcutta, and he occasionally stayed with the Master. He is now known as in the Ramakrishna order as Swami Premananda. The carriage pulled up shortly after we arrived. The Master asked Baburam to carry his towel, some warm clothes and a spice bag. Then he bowed down to the mother and entered the carriage. Baburam took the Master's things and sat on the other side of the carriage. A third person, who we later learned was Pratap Chandra Hazra, went to Calcutta with the Master. As soon as the Master left, we fortunately found a passenger boat to take us to Bara Bazaar in Calcutta. We thought that the festival would start in the evening, so we waited for a while at a friend's house. Our new acquaintance Vaikuntha, left to take care of some business, assuring us that he would see us at the festival at the appropriate time. We arrived at Mani Malik's house at about 4 p.m. When we inquired about the Master, a man showed us to the parlor upstairs. The room was beautifully decorated with flowers and leaves for the festival, and some devotees were there talking with one another. They told us that the noon service and music was over and that the Master had gone to the inner apartment at the request of women devotees. In the evening there would be another service and kirtan. When we heard that it would be some time before the evening service began, we went out for a while. In the evening, we returned to the festival. While we were in the street in front of the house, we heard sweet music and the loud sound of mridanga. We hurried into the house and up to the parlor, knowing that the kirtan had begun. What we saw there defies description. Inside the hall was a thick crowd that spilled outside. So many people were standing in every doorway and on the western roof that it was almost impossible to push through the crowd into the room. The devotees were all craning their necks and intently watching what was happening inside the hall. Full of devotion, they were completely unaware of their surroundings. When we saw that it would be impossible to enter the room through the front door, we went around the house, crossed the western roof, and approached the northern door of the hall. The crowd was somewhat thinner, so we were able to thrust our head into the room. We saw a wonderful scene. High waves of heavenly bliss seemed to be flowing in the room. Everyone there was laughing, crying, and dancing. They had completely lost in the kirtan. Some people fell on the ground, unable to control themselves. Others were overwhelmed with emotion and acted like lunatics. The master was dancing in the center of that God-intoxicated group, rapidly moving forward and backward with rhythmic steps. In whatever direction he moved, the crowd made room for him as if enchanted. An extraordinary combination of tenderness, sweetness, and leonine strength was visible in every one of Master's limbs. His face shone with a divine smile. What a superb dance! There was no artificiality or affectation in it, no jumping, no unnatural gestures or acrobatics, nor was there any absence of control apparent. Rather, one saw in the master's dancing a rhythm of natural gestures and movements that sprang from his overwhelming bliss, sweetness, and zeal. His phenomenal dance was like that of a big fish that swims freely and joyfully throughout a vast clear lake, sometimes slowly and sometimes quickly. Absorbed in the ocean of blissful Brahman, the master used his body to express his inner feelings. At times he lost consciousness of his surroundings as he danced, and sometimes his cloth fell from his body. When that happened, someone fastened it tightly around his waist. And if he saw anyone become overwhelmed with spiritual emotions and lose consciousness, he touched that man's chest, bringing him back to a normal state. A current of divine bliss emanated from the master and spread in all directions, allowing the devotees to see God face to face. Those of a lukewarm temperament found their fervor intensified. Those with idle minds began to enthusiastically progress in the realm of spirituality, and those who were attached to the world became for a while free from their attachment. Among those who experienced ecstasy and lost outer consciousness from time to time were Vijay Krishna Goswami, leader of the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj, and even some of the Brahmo devotees. Chiranjeev Sharma, accompanied by one stringent instrument, sang in his sweet voice, "Dance, O children of the blissful mother, round and round." He also was beside himself. The kirtan continued for more than 2 hours in this manner, closing with this song. Who has brought this sweet name of Hari to the world? Has Nitai brought this name? Or was it brought by God or Advaita of Shantipur? Finally, everyone presented praised and bowed down to all religious denominations and spiritual teachers, and the wonderful kirtan came to an end. We remember that when we were all seated after the kirtan, the master asked Nagendranath Chattopadhyay, a Brahmo teacher, to sing the following song. In an ecstatic mood, he repeated it a couple of times, bringing happiness to those present. Be drunk, O mind, be drunk with the wine of heavenly bliss. Roll on the ground and weep, chanting Hari's sweet name. Fill the arching heavens with your deep lion roar, singing Hari's sweet name with your arms upraised. Dance in the name of Hari and give his name to all. Swim by day and by night in the bliss of Hari's love. Slay desire with his name, and blessed be your life. Afterwards, the master told those assembled that one attains supreme bliss when one lifts the mind above these sense objects and directs it towards God. The women devotees who were seated behind a screen in the eastern part of the parlor were also asked him various questions on spiritual matters and enjoyed his inspiring replies. As he answered the questions put to him, the master now and then sang a few songs composed by Ram Prasad and Kamalakanta in praise of the Divine Mother to impress the subject deeply into his listener's mind. We distinctly remember hearing him sing these songs. 1. The black bee of my mind is drawn in sheer delight to the blue lotus of Mother Shyama's feet. 2. High in the heaven of Mother's feet, my mind was soaring like a kite. 3. All creation is the sport of my mad Mother Kali. 4. What is the fault of the poor mind? Why do you blame it falsely? 5. Mother, this is the grief that sorely grieves my heart, that even with thee for mother and though I am wide awake, there should be robbery in my house. While the master was singing the mother's name, Vijay went to another room with a few devotees and began to expound on the Ramayana by Tulsidas. When it was time for the evening service, Vijay returned to the parlor to bow down to the master before beginning the prayer service. When the master saw Vijay, he said jokingly, "Nowadays, Vijay takes great delight in Kirtan, but I am frightened when he dances for the whole roof may collapse." Everyone laughed. Yes, such a thing actually happened in our part of the country where people built two-storied houses out of wood and mud. A Vaishnava teacher went to a disciple's house and began Kirtan on the upper floor. When the singing reached the right mood, people began to dance. Now that a teacher was a little plump like you, addressing Vijay. After he danced for a while, the floor collapsed and he fell through the ground floor. That is why I am afraid your dancing might repeat that scene. All laughed. Noticing Vijay's ochre clothes, the master said, "Nowadays Vijay is very fond of ochre color. Generally people dye their clothes and chadars ochre, but Vijay even dyes his shirt and shoes. That is good. A state comes when one wishes to do so and one no longer wears clothes of any other color. Ochre is indeed the mark of renunciation. It reminds the aspirant that he has renounced everything for God." Vijay then bowed down to the master, who blessed him heartily, saying, "Peace, peace, peace be unto you." When the master was singing the mother's name, something occurred that shows how keen was his power of observation, though he always remained in an introspective mood. While he was singing, the master looked at Baburam and immediately realized that he was hungry and thirsty. The master knew that Baburam would not eat before he did, so he asked for some sweets and water for himself. He took a little, but he gave a large portion to Baburam and shared whatever remained with the devotees. Vijay began his evening prayers downstairs, and shortly thereafter the master was taken to the inner apartments for supper. It was 9 p.m. When we came downstairs to attend Vijay's service, we saw that the Brahmo devotees had assembled in the courtyard for prayer, while Vijay sat on a dais in the northern veranda of the house. Recollecting the glory of Brahman, he began the prayer in chorus with the Brahmo devotees. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Brahman is truth, knowledge and infinity. Thus the prayer service continued. After a while, the master came into the room and joined them, sitting there calmly for 15 minutes. At about 10, the master asked for a carriage so he could return to Dakshineshwar. He put on his socks, coat and a cap that covered his ears to protect himself from the cold. He slowly got into the carriage with Baburam and others. Vijay then began to give instructions to Brahmos from the dais, and we left for home. On that day, we saw how the master rejoiced in the company of Brahmo devotees. We do not know whether Mani Malik was a formal member of Brahmo Samaj, but we know with certainty that the members of his family followed the Brahmo religion and practiced daily prayer and meditation according to that faith. When the master heard that a woman of this family could not concentrate during meditation, he asked her affectionately, "Tell me, whom do you think of all the time?" The woman was then raising her young nephew, and thoughts of him were continually arising in her mind. When the master heard this, he advised her to serve that boy as a form of the child Krishna. The woman practiced his advice and experienced Bhava Samadhi within a short time. We narrated this story in detail elsewhere. On another occasion, we saw the master rejoicing with some Brahmo devotees in another place. We shall now describe that event to the reader.